Hello, gents. My pleasure to welcome you to Rana Drill Weekly Podcast. In this number, I would be so happy to host Mr. Ralph Chester. He's geopolitical strategist at Hibala. And thanks for joining me, Ralph.
Hi, good afternoon. Sabah khair, Shoaib. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much. It's pleasure all time to talk to you, Ralph.
Same here, Shoaib. Really great to see you again. I think we have an interesting topic today.
Yeah, hope so. It's about geopolitics. Okay,
Right.
in today's podcast, we'll dig into some geopolitics related to the oil and gas supplies, and we'll talk about the impact of geopolitics on oil and gas in waterways and choke points.
Yeah.
Geopolitics have been hugely impacting the oil and gas supplies sensitively, but lately we have seen that the market reaction was not combined to that direction, especially when we talk about the ongoing two wars in Ukraine and in Gaza. In February 22, the war took place in Ukraine. Oil and gas prices spiked quickly to $115 per barrel, but returned to normal. On the other side, natural gas also skyrocketed to 250 euros per megawatt hour, but it dropped also to normal levels. Same scenario happened in Gaza. The oil and gas market responded to the shockwave, but didn't sustain longer, even we have a lot of troubles in waterways in the Red Sea. We all agree that geopolitics have a direct impact on oil and gas market, but we don't feel it. Mr. Ralph, is the global economy sick to this stage where two wars are not affecting oil and gas prices enormously?
Yeah, Shoaib. Everybody is rubbing his eyes, obviously, and is looking to the situation. And you would expect spikes in gas and oil, and we had just, as you said, very, very short-term reaction on the market. So, from a geopolitical view, I would rather start with saying that, and this is my personal opinion, and not that one of my employers or any industries I'm representing, but the first thing, which crossed my mind, it's a super election year. And the oil and gas would contribute to inflation, especially in the global north, so to say. So looking at the US, and that would have an impact, on the elections, and it would have an impact on inflation. So one would wonder, if what we right now see is trying to cool down the markets in a specific way that would create inflation and that would leave room, for a reduction in interest rates. Because what we are seeing next to weak oil and gas, which would be an indicator. I mean, I'm not an economist, but it could be an indicator actually for a weak economy. We see at the same time surging global stock markets. And this is amazing to see. So, from a geopolitical point, I could rather say that the two wars have been digested pretty quickly.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, exactly. And we see that usually what we have when we have geopolitical problem, we have like a threatening the oil and gas supplies, but really it was a little bit the case, but quickly recovered, and we have stability of and of the prices. For example, today a barrel of oil is like traded at $72 for barrel, and even we have two ongoing wars. So, what do you think about this?
Well, in a way, it is amazing, but if you just look back to the year 2022 in wintertime, and when the US clearly hinted that Russia will invade, the sanction packages were already in place. And not only in place, I mean, everybody was aware how they would look like, including the Russians. So what I'm trying to say is that there was enough of time to prepare for the worst. When Europe finally sanctions the Russian oil imports, which has not yet taken place for gas, we are
Mhm,
still getting gas from
mhm,
Russia. More LNGs nowadays than pipeline gas, but we're still buying gas from Russia. Obviously, there was already a plan in the draw, to deliver more of the oil which will be sanctioned by Europe to Asia. And there are certain trade and transport corridors which were in the planning and in the making. They have not yet reached their peak, but one of them is the Arctic route. And the climate change is having kind of a positive impact, on this trade route in the north, because the ice is melting. So in summertime, commercial shipping is possible. The second is the north-south transport corridor. The north-south transport corridor is obviously channeling a lot of oil from Russia to India. So we see that at the time when the war broke out and the sanctions were put on Russia, certain alternatives to reroute oil and gas were already there, and I think that worked and it helped, to keep prices more or less under control.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can say that we have the impact of geopolitics and the impact of climate change. If we see that the ice is melting in the North Sea and in Arctic, and Russia is taking profit of that, in the other side in Canal of Panama, the water, because of drying, the canal is drying quickly, so
Yeah.
the ships are not able to cross, also to support, to overload their charge as impacting transportation over there. So we have two impact. We have geopolitics and we have the climate change. Also impact is really affecting the global oil and gas supplies. Let me go to the second question. Based on the reports of the Energy Information Administration, the Strait of Hormuz, the biggest choke point in the world, which oil flows reach like 21 million barrels per day in 22, representing 20% of the global oil consumption. In the other side, 7.5 million barrels per day and 36 billion cubic meters of LNG across the Suez Canal in 23. Qatar Energy, for example, ordered its ships to avoid the Red Sea in favor of rounding the Cape of Good Hope, even during the attacks against natural gas vessels. Meanwhile, prices dropped to 24 megawatt hour last February. Today, prices of natural gas are like 37 euro per megawatt hour. As demand on natural gas it's increased to generate electricity. Mr. Ralph, you don't think that the market became more sensitive to the fundamentals rather than geopolitics?
Well, this is a good question, Mr. Shoaib. I mean, because there is no good answer to it. But if you look at certain developments, and they already, I mean, geopolitically, they started already after the oil crisis in the 70s. I mean, we know Nixon, from Watergate, but Nixon in foreign policy was an amazing guy. He did not only open up to China, but when the oil crisis erupted, he made sure that the US will be autark in oil and gas. And each and every president following Nixon made sure that they're on the right way to do that. So they became an exporter instead of a huge importer. And today, according to my knowledge, at least, they are the biggest producer of oil and gas and exporter of oil and gas. So, and this is geopolitically, it clearly shows that the US was expecting more instability to come to the world. And in a way, at least they made sure that their supply will be sufficient. And they will also have certain power on regulating the markets, on regulating prices by their export power. If you listen to Trump, at the latest election campaign, you will hear not only that they are autark, but what he is promising, to the Americans is that energy will be cheap, cheap, cheap. Yeah, and if you compare American energy prices, especially in gas, with Europe, you'll see that American gas prices even dropped compared to European gas prices. And nowadays, what we see is that we import more LNG from the US, Norway, and Russia. You have to admit Russia, because formerly we received pipeline gas, but since Nord Stream 2 was disrupted, we have to buy more LNG from Russia as well. So that looks to me like the overall picture is that the market geopolitically has created a new balance. And although we have choke points like in the Strait of Hormuz, and you're absolutely right. I mean, when we're talking about the Gaza-Israel conflict and the widening of the conflict, which may have included Iran, everybody was pretty much concerned that that could really affect the Strait of Hormuz, especially China, because they're receiving 80%. I mean, 80% of the exports of Iranian oil are going to China, at least to my knowledge. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Qatar and the LNG cargo ships, they pass through the Strait of Hormuz as well. And they're already forced by the Houthis, which is a direct result of the conflict between Israel and Gaza. They are forced to take the longer route, bypassing South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what we see is that trade corridors are more and more important in geopolitics, and there are alternatives to the existing trade corridors and choke points that we know, like the Suez Canal, Strait of Hormuz, Strait of Malacca, which is an even bigger point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why we want to shed light on this, because even we have two wars are running at the moment, are ongoing in Europe and in Gaza. Even in those travels, two wars. But the problem is that we see like stability, a flattening the price of oil and gas globally. That's why what I said, that in winter, natural gas in TTF in Europe were like 24 euro. Today, they are 37. So the demand, I think the fundamentals are acting more than geopolitics at the moment, because we see that difference in price. Let me go to the part two, Mr. Ralph, and we'll talk about the war in Ukraine. So after the war in Ukraine, we have seen that a remapping, let's say a remapping of the global oil and gas supplies. Russia was the main supplier to Europe, distant only with only a few miles and very short time. After the start of the war, the gap was quickly filled up by the US, very far supplying distance and longer time. The ships avoiding Bab el-Mandeb took the Good Hope, resulting 15 days of delivery delays. How the financial institutions, I mean banks, insurance companies, deal with the extra cost of deliveries time we are in a global economic crisis?
Yeah. I mean, what you can see right now is that the prices for containers are going up again. And it's not so much about, well, when you look at it and you take this route via the Cape of Good Hope, the extra cost is, well, maybe $1 million. So if you think about the super container ships, which can carry 25,000 containers each, so you see that the extra cost is $40 per container. And that would not even affect the prices of T-shirts, okay, to be very, very fair. It's not much.
But what about the time? What about the time?
Yeah, the time.
What about the time? 50 delays of 15 days.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. And this is, you're absolutely right. And this is a crucial point, the delays, because most people don't realize, that especially in commercial shipping, be it a container or be it oil or gas, it is a very, very fine schedule that is working to make sure that each and every ship reaches ports and harbors at a certain time to be unloaded. Exactly. So one result of that, of the delays of, as you say, 15 days, some ships can make it in 9 days, is that this schedule is not working any longer. I mean, it needs to readjust. And when it needs to readjust, that is not, it's not over in a couple of days, not even in a couple of weeks. And so what we see is that container prices are going up because some ports, on the eastern coast of the US, they have a lot of empty containers waiting there for ships to really load them and take them to Asia, where goods are waiting for shipment. And this is the critical point which I see in what's happening in the Red Sea, and this really affects the economy in Europe, and it affects also the economy in the US.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you have a delay of delivery, you will have generate like an inflation. Because if you don't have goods to arrive on time, you will have a lack of goods in your market. And by the way, prices increase. That's why we see that inflation, I believe, in the European market. And we see that also in Germany. Germany is the biggest economy in Europe, but I believe that's why Germany at the moment is its economy. It's not really in good situation anyway, but it's recovering, but a very slow pace, and hope it will recover. Hope it will recover very soon in the future. But that is related to the energy prices, because we know all that before the war in Ukraine, let's say from 2010, 2015, megawatt hour of natural gas was like 10, 12, 15 euro. Today they are 37. So we are talking about 2.5 volts, and that's very expensive. And as Germany is industrial country, is relying a lot on natural gas for in this industry. That's why we see, I think, the inflation is hitting the German economy. Let me go maybe to this last question, Mr. Ralph. Today we have many conflicts are running at once. We have the war in Gaza, the war in Ukraine, tensions with Iran, and so threatening the security of the global supplies of oil and gas. Even that oil plummeted today to $72. Natural gas in TTF is like 10.8 euro million BTU. Here my point. In Hurry Hub, United States, natural gas prices are $2.2 million BTU. It means 5 times cheaper compared to the Europe TTF. The US is producing its natural gas, but Europe is importing its natural gas. So this is, we have to highlight this. It's important. It's important. Europe is importing its natural gas and paying it 5-fold the price in the United States. Talking from the energy and financial perspectives. If we keep running with this cadency, Mr. Ralph, you don't think that Europe is going to deep economic crisis gradually time the US is strengthening its position?
Yeah, I mean, there will be economic challenges. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't talk of a crisis yet, but there could be a crisis. I mean, you cannot rule it out. The thing is that industrialized states, they need security, they need stability, and this affects labor costs, this affects energy. And what we see is that while the oil crisis took place, and we were also, in Europe consuming Arab oil and gas, we once decided, at least part of Europe, because as you know, Algeria is still exporting gas to Spain and Italy through pipelines. And we are talking about pipelines, and the price of pipeline gas is cheaper than the LNG because you have to transform it 2 times. So what I'm saying here is
that's why Algeria is a favorite exporter to European Union, because we have pipelines, we have exporting natural gas through pipelines, and through pipelines we are more safe, more secure, and cheaper. That's why Algeria is competing any other suppliers.
Yeah, and I fully agree. And I fully agree. And, when this instability happened, and it's still around, and of course, we haven't found any solution yet for the circumstances that we do not receive any more pipeline gas through Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 from Russia. we were looking at West Africa because we thought, that if and when we built the Trans-Saharan pipeline from West Africa through Niger up to Algeria, that would enable us to actually buy bigger volumes of gas
Yeah, it's
from
a 30.
Algeria.
Yes, it's a 30 billion cubic meters of natural
Yeah,
gas per year. It will
yeah,
help. It will help a lot, European Union, I think, to lessen the impact of the lack. Let's say between bracket, the lacking of missing the Russian pipelines, I believe. And
correct.
this is my point, Mr. Ralph, because Germany was relying a lot on pipelines. I don't
Yeah,
say Russia or anyone, was relying on the piped natural gas, which is cheaper. If we talk
yeah,
about the economic point at the moment, about the competition, natural gas in the US are cheaper 5 times
yeah,
compared
yeah,
to the price in the European Union.
yeah,
So if I am an American, I have an American company, for example, and you are in Germany, when I produce a product in the US, I will be more competitor compared to you. That's why I can find a market better than you in Europe. And that's what's really making like a gap between the US and who is the winner of this war in Ukraine. This is
yeah.
the big question.
And I absolutely agree. I think the reason for that is the real conflict that is moving the world, and that is between US and China.
Mhm, mhm.
And I mean, both states, US and China, are trying to convince companies to come to their market and produce there. They have
Yes.
different tools and means.
Mhm.
The thing is that, I'm German, I'm European. So, well, the thing is that if and when we would like to become more competitive again, we either find alternative ways to get pipeline gas, but whenever we try a new strategy, like going to Africa, out of a sudden we have an instability in Niger. And out of a sudden we cannot build a Trans-Saharan gas pipeline because you have the Africa cores, the Russian Africa cores in Niger with a new government there. And this creates once again instability and insecurity, and no insurance company is going to finance or to cover the completion of such a gas pipeline. If we are looking to Central Asia, that would be another alternative. We figure out that if and when we do that, we create new dependencies because we create a dependency with Azerbaijan. We create a dependency with Turkey. The thing is that if you don't have it at home, you have to buy it somewhere, huh? And this is why we all go to supermarkets. But
Yeah,
the road to supermarkets are sometimes not safe. So what I'm saying here is that if we can't get it safe anywhere in the world, we have to produce it on our soil. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. But don't forget, I mean, politically, what Europe is trying to do, Europe is, and they have voiced that a couple of years ago, if not decades ago, they would like to turn green. And we all know that we cannot live without gas because you already mentioned the electricity grid. And even with all the kind of alternative energy that we have, and we produce more and more in Europe, we know that to stabilize the grid, we need gas turbines, we
we
need
need
gas
diversity.
power.
We need diversity, and
Yeah,
politicians have to be aware that from
yeah,
renewable energies we get only electricity, but we don't get petrochemistry. That petrochemistry we
yeah,
get it only from oil and gas. And the
yeah,
petrochemistry, the industry in Germany, we have the tires for the cars. We have all
yeah,
most of spare parts are rubber and plastic, and even
yeah,
computers, everything surrounding us are from oil and gas. So that's the reason
correct,
we say renewables are a good alternative if we talk about electricity, but partially, not all the time, not 4 seasons.
correct.
That
Yeah,
they are part of solutions even inside when we talk about electricity, but they are not a solution when we talk about the petrochemistry. And this is the
mm,
big. I think this is what politicians, some politicians talk about. I will not talk about any country, but some politicians talk about green. Green, yes, we want to be green, but it's illogic at the moment, I believe, and they have to understand that there is some logic. We still need natural gas, we still need oil, and even coal. We still need it. Germany is relying, I think, about 27% on coal to generate its
Yes.
electricity. But you cannot call Germany, hey, stop coal, don't produce electricity because it's polluting. Give Germans a solution, so they will take rid of coal. Do you agree about it? Yeah.
Fully, because this is what we see right now. And when we talk about politics, since this is also another crucial point in Europe, because, well, if you really would like to turn green, then you have to explain to the people what needs to happen, right? And you cannot say, okay, we are going to be green, and we will be green in a couple of years, because this is not just a straight road. Yeah, it needs, on the way, there are certain bumpers which you have to overcome. And this is exactly the point where I feel, if you look at Germany, for example, and the government has just recently passed a bill whereby they will build more gas power plants, 14 billion. I think this is the amount in question. But experts here in the industry, they say, okay, we need 40. Yeah, 14 is not enough. But try to get gas turbines nowadays in this world. After we told most of the energy companies producing gas turbines, that we would like to turn green. I mean, what they have done is they adjusted their production, so they need to increase it once again, and that's not easy. You can't do it overnight. So it's a catch-22, and what at least I would expect on a personal basis from a politician is that there is more or less kind of expert committees, working on certain things and working on a reality and how we can achieve a real picture and how we get there. But for the time being, and as I said, it's super election year all over. Well, I think it looks like politics is more or less in the lead. And it's not so much about the expertise in the energy sector, be it fossil fuels, be it gas, be it alternative energies. And this is what we need,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.